Okay, so we have another interesting daf. Not so easy this daf, but also things that come up. Yeah. So Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, 3 lines down from the top. Yeah, it says V'amar Rava. So Rava said, Haiman de Oiger Agure Ledavlu. If a guy hired workers, Oiger means that he hired Agure, his workers Ledavla, in order to draw water, meaning to draw water or to schlep water to irrigate a field. Right? So he hired workers to irrigate his field. For us, so much of, and then what do you know? It rained, so he didn't need the workers. Right? It's a classic case. You hire workers because you think you need them, and then it comes out that you don't need them. So who loses out here? Does the owner lose out, meaning the guy who was hiring them, or do the workers lose out? So the Gemara says, say to the Pa'ilim, that if it rained, then it's the Pa'ilim's loss. They don't have to get paid at all because it's called mazel. It's called mazel. What are you gonna do? I hired you to do this, and Lamaisa it rained. Now, still look, but weren't you hired? So that you have some Taisis over here that explaining exactly what the case was. It could be that they checked out the field, and if they checked it out and they knew it was possible that it could have rained, and they still took the job, so then it's not the boss's problem, right? And the other option is that they should have realized, even if they didn't check it out, they should have realized this is in a rainy neighborhood, and it could very well be that there's going to be rain.
It would seem even if it's not a rainy neighborhood, it would be the expected of anybody who's doing that type of job, that it's understood if the ground would all of a sudden get wet from somewhere else, let's say the rain, so then they wouldn't be needed at all. So you would understand that beforehand. They're taking on the job. That yes, you're supposed to bring 22,000 gallons, but if the 2,000 comes from the Shemayim, obviously that could happen. So that's got to be taken into account. Not that
right.
They're expert water drawers or waterers or irrigators or something,
Yeah. But again, we're going to see, and then this Gemara is going to bring a few examples. So it's really dependent on whose responsibility it is to know all this knowledge, right? Because the next case, also Naira, but what happens if a river came and overflowed and then it irrigated the field? So now, say to the Balabayas, that's the Balabayas' loss, because how are the workers supposed to know that there was a potential for this field to get irrigated by itself? The Yavlu Kapayel bottle, and he pays them like we learned yesterday's daf, like a pile bottle, because he's not going to pay them as if they irrigated the whole field, because Lamaisa, they could sit on a chair and twiddle their thumbs. Right? So they get paid like a pile bottle. Fine. That's case number one. Case number two, if a person hired workers to also the same thing, to irrigate the field, so basically the way it worked is that they had to schlep water from the not rivers, I guess, rivers, whatever, streams that went through, they had these streams that went through all the lands, and you dammed them up, and then the water came to you. Or you had to push the water to you. Either way. So Rashi says, because in the middle of the day, everybody started using the water. This is like upstate. Try to get a shower on a Friday afternoon in a bungalow colony. When everybody's using the water, it's very hard to get any sort of water pressure, right? Or in an apartment building, if you're on the top floors and lots of people are taking showers. So what happened is that so many people were irrigating the fields, so then the water just dried up. So now halfway through the job, it was something beyond their control. So the Gemara says, what happens here? Eloi of it, the pasuk, if it doesn't normally stop, meaning this is a fluke, some say to the Pa'ilim, and then that's the worker's loss. Meaning the boss didn't didn't think to tell them or to make any sort of stipulation because it was an abnormal thing, right? And what are they going to get paid? They'll get paid for the half a day work that they did, and the rest of the day they'll take pile bottle. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, they're not going to get anything. They're not going to get anything. Again, the main rule is if it's an inus to the owner, then they don't get paid at all. Because it's a pure inus. If it's not, and the owner is at fault, then you get paid kapoil bottle of it the pasuk. But if the water does sometimes dry up, even a masa, so then it depends. If the people that were hired, if the workers that were hired live in this town, and they should be aware that this river sometimes dries up, so say to the pilot, it's their loss because they should have realized. Labene masa, but if they don't live in the town, say to the balabais, then how are they? Meaning it's the loss of the balabais, because how are they supposed to know that this river sometimes dries off? Right? And so then he has to pay them again, kapayel bottle. Third case, Vamarava, Haiman da'agar agure lavidta. He hired people to do work. The Gemara doesn't say what work, it just says they hired people to do work. Ushlim avidta b'palga diyayma. And they finished their work halfway through the day. Right? Meaning, I guess they worked well and they're halfway done the day, and halfway through the day, and then they finished the job. So now what? So they're twiddling their thumbs. So if there's work that's easier than the work that they were hired for. So this is debate whether you've gutters this or not. The Gross says take it out, right? Others say keep it in. So Yavlu, he should give it to them. Right? Give them that work. Inami. The kavase mafkid lahu. Right? Or if they find work that's the same, then they could hire the workers they can make the workers do that. The kashamina loy mafkilu, but if it's work that's harder than the work that they were hired for, that is not allowed. But noisalim scharim mishalim, and he has to give them full pay. Right? So Memela, why? Because they did their half day's work and there's no other work for them to do. Right? And the workers had no idea about that. So Memela, they were hired for the entire day, so that's what they get paid. So the Gemara asks, so why are you not paying them kapayal batal? We said the rule is that when it's the fault of the owner, the workers deserve money, but since they didn't do the work, so they get work like a pile batal. So how come here they're not getting kapayal batal? So now there's some major, as they call, raid on this. Very interesting. Rava said this when it was talking about these workers of Mechuza, and they were basically the schleppers. And the Eloi Avdi Chalshi, if they sit idle, they become weak, meaning they need to do work. I guess they have to keep in shape. That would be the way I understand it. These workers have to keep in shape. If they have no work for today, they're actually gonna take a step backwards, right? And
are
since
these Yidden?
I'm assuming they're Yidden, yeah.
So then you pay them less on Sundays?
What do you mean?
They didn't work
because they didn't work on Shabbos.
So they're weaker.
Know. I hear it's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if it's a cumulative. I don't know if it's like a day-to-day thing. It's a cumulative thing. All right. But the bottom line is what we're saying.
Okay, after Yom Tov. 3-day Yom Tov. 3-day Yom
Tov. Yeah. I know. I hear. Unless
they work harder because they're going in shul. They work harder.
Oh. Maybe sitting in shul for a few hours could be hard. Possible. Anyway, so again, what the Gemara is saying is that since these workers need to stay in shape, and now they have nothing to do, so Memela, they are actually losing money, so therefore you have to pay full pay for them. Right? Now, based on this, there's a fascinating for the Rebbeim amongst us over here. Dovi, it's good you're on tonight. The Rosh brings Rabbeinu Yoel, right? Let's say a guy, and this is a common question, more with therapists and a tutor. You're getting paid to tutor a guy. The kid doesn't show up, right? You get paid to tutor a guy, the kid doesn't show up. You take the money, you don't take the money.
Charge double.
Well, then we're trying to do it halachically.
Well, they said the training. What's it called? Waste of time.
So that's the question.
Right.
So do you pay him? Listen, it's their fault, so they have to pay. But do they pay like a poil bottle, or do they have to pay his regular salary? The Maisi didn't teach the kid. They definitely have to pay him something. That's not a question. The question is, did they pay him fully or not?
Isn't the payment to the tutor already kapel batul?
What you're saying? You can't take because you're not allowed to take money. But you're doing for the babysitting part. The money's for the babysitting part, not the Torah. However you structure it, right? What Gershon's referring to is you're not allowed to take money to teach Torah. But anyways, so the Rosh brings a Rabbeinu Yoel.
Nobody said he was a Torah tutor. He's tutoring the guy how to make yapshik.
Right, or the therapists.
There's no Yitzhahara to miss any other kind of tutor.
What?
Yeah. He said there's no Yitzhahara for that. The therapists, New York City does not allow, if the student doesn't show up, you have these ladies, they schlep over to a school to do a therapy. If the kid doesn't show up, they're not allowed to charge. According to the law, they're not allowed to charge. Which is really bad, so not right. But anyways, so Rabbeinu Yoel brings, if somebody rented out a malamed for his son, and the kid was sick, right? So he says it depends. If it's not shchiach that the kid gets sick, so the malamed loses out, right? Just like any other einus, he loses out. The kid got sick. But if it's shchiach that the kid gets sick, or he's like a no-show kid, which is a lot of the kids that get tutored, right? They're being tutored for a reason. Not always, but they don't have the zitzvah, should they not? So, but he should have known that, right? So, so then it's going to also be his loss because he should have been prepared. He knows that this kid doesn't show up always, but if it's not, then the balabas loses and he has to pay him full, not poil bottle, right? Meaning if the kid normally shows up, the kid's not normally sick. And he doesn't show, and then Rabbeinu Yoel brought in the Rosh, and right here on this daf, says he gets paid like full. Why? I'm going to read the Lashon. The kol laim de Torah dami le'achlusi de mechuzah. Somebody who learns Torah is similar to these workers in mechuzah. Shabatala garim lehem shikcha v'kayver evarim. The batala from Torah causes them to take a few steps back. Meaning you can't leave the brain bottle.
So do we?
Yeah, go ahead.
So do we check out what the tutor did for the hour when the kid wasn't there?
Oh, very good. So you mechamen to the papula.
That's a lot of times I'm learning in the base medrash anyways. The kid shows up, good. He doesn't show up, fine. I'll continue learning.
Oh, so very good. So the papula charifta on the bottom of the rush asks this kasha. He says, "What I understand? So let him learn." Nobody. What are you saying? Because he's not learning. So what's he going to do? Go on the internet and go on YouTube? Let him learn. Why should he get paid? Why should the owner have to get? Why should the father, whoever's paying for the kids' tutoring?
Does it matter if you have like a monthly or hourly?
Well, if you make up to get paid monthly, so then we're talking about you're getting paid. If you paid up monthly, so you get monthly. Any smart tutor tells him, makes the Tanai. This is all exclude. I mean, if you make the Tanai lechatchila, then that's the Tanai. He agrees to pay even if it's a no-show. We're talking about where they didn't agree, right? I don't know. Can you say that for
the kid's not his chavrusa? He's 50 years old.
Right.
No shots, and he's tutoring a 10-year-old kid.
Right.
Kid's not his chavrusa. Kid's not his chavrusa.
Oh, so good. That's what the Papula Charifta says. So good. So that's the kasha. What the Olam's asking is the kasha. Let him sit and learn. So he says, I'm just going to read the Lashon. This is pretty fascinating stuff. V'yirali, they mililmoid ba'atzmoid loy kasha klal. The ain't a dime liloimid in Talmud shetzarach omo v'yagia rabba, to learn with a Talmud that requires lots of work. V'nimtza achshav she'ena omo kol kach, and now that he's learning by himself without teaching, goyrem like kovid avarim, if he gets his avarim get heavy. I don't understand. If I was teaching a kid, I wouldn't have no kovid avarim. I'd be fakert. I'd be very happy. But okay, he's saying that it's the opposite.
You'd be happy teaching a kid or learning by yourself?
Learning
By
myself.
himself.
Right, that's what I wanted to
Himself.
make sure I understood. I wanted to make sure I understood it right.
No, but yes, but the Papula Charifta is saying fakert.
Naftali, you should live and be well every time you walk through that door. He goes, aye.
This is only if you're standing him up, meaning you thought you were coming but if you cancel an hour before, that's not the same.
Correct. Well, yeah, but he's still saying, the Papula Charifta is saying that there is some sort of not drawback, whatever. Right? Oh,
I mean, it's much easier for me to learn with someone Shavuos night than by myself.
That's Shavuos night, but that's not the same. We're not talking about Shavuos night.
That's the first thing. You fall asleep by yourself. You don't fall asleep when you learn with a Chavrusa.
That's true, but here we're talking about a teacher. He's saying specifically a teacher. He's saying specifically a teacher. It's a step back if he doesn't teach. And with Lilmoid Acherim Nami Ein Kan Temel, if you Shagam Rabbeinu Yod Lo Yomer Elakish Ein Kan Acherim. The Kava say, does that atomic? Okay, whatever. That's
Could you post a picture of that?
I will post it. Yeah, believe that. I meant to post it before.
And then if you were there, you wouldn't need to post anything for you.
That's right.
I didn't hear what
I
you
could have
said.
showed it to you. And he was here. I was here before.
I was coming back. My wife wanted me to stay
That's
home.
okay enough, Tully.
Yeah.
You don't need to make excuses to us. We're just getting on you.
Okay.
Right. And there's a chua from Radvaz. He basically says that you see that melamde tinoikes toichem harbe, people that teach kids are very, they work very hard. V'yagem v'su, that's called, meaning it's meaning once there's a break in the action, it's very hard for him to get back into it. Right, so. That's why the Radvaz has this shaila, and he says you can't pay him like a Yoshev Batel, even if the kid doesn't show up, because the kid, if the Rebbe has a break, it's very hard to restart the engines, right? So, yeah.
He didn't want to be a DH. He wanted to play.
I was going to say better. This is talking about where they give the Knicks off 2 days, so now the game 6 is on a Friday night. What do you need 2 days off? Right? 1 day off should be enough. This is right. This is the Rangers are also off for 2 days. Right? So they clearly are not going with this. They're not going with this. Anyways, but that's the very interesting part of the daf. Okay, back in the Gemara. Omar Mar. So Shamin Lahen es Masha Asu. We're just talking about where the workers back out. Right? So we said that you evaluate what they did. Ketzad, how do you evaluate how much they did? If the price of the work went up to 6 dinrim, right? Remember we said the job was 8 dinrim. They did half a job, so they should really get paid 4 dinrim. The problem is that the replacement workers are going to cost 6 more dinrim, which means that now the owner is on the hook for 10 dinrim because these guys backed out halfway through. Had they not backed out, it would have only cost them 8 dinrim. So Noiselhem Sela, so he gives them a Sela 4 dinar. Kasavi Rabbana Yad Poyel Al Yoina, meaning he doesn't lose the 2 dinrim. Right? Reb Dois held that if the worker does half the work at 4 dirham, he does half the work. He does all the work, he's supposed to get 8 dirham. He did half the work, he's supposed to get 4 dirham. Only problem is that to replace these workers, it's going to cost him 6 dirham. So Rav Daisa said, okay, those 2 extra dirham come out of the workers who backed out. So therefore, all he has to pay them is 2 dirham. The Rabbanan saying, no, they get their regular 4 dirham because the Yad Poyel Al Yana, the worker, he was much more the Rabbanan are much more the Tanakama. What do you call it? What those guys with the rat?
Liberal?
What are they called? What? What union? He was for the union, right? So therefore, even though they backed out, they still have Yoda Yoin. Daisa holds the other way around. That it's the owner who has Yoda Yoin. Right? It's the regular wars that they have nowadays. They had it back then too. Fine. Then another option was the other option is even though they backed out, the owner could convince them to go back in. And they should take Shnei Slime. So Gemara says Pshita. Well, of course. They went and they finished the job, so they should get their 2 slime. That was the estimate for the job in the first place. So now we're talking about where the price of work, the workers went up. Right? The Imru, Payalim, and the workers backed out. And the Balabais went and was a Matthias them. He appeased them to convince them to come back. Mao, the same Matsu Amrule. So Amrule, so they can say to him, Kim, if I seen on a diet the I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. The Taftalan, the Tafaslan Agra. We only came back if you raised our contract. Kamash Malon, Damalahu, the boss can say to them, no, I'm gonna pay you your original price, but you're gonna have to I'm gonna feed you and give you to drink, but I'm paying you the same salary. Yeah, okay. So then Sela, noise and Sela. If they only work for a Sela's worth, then he gives them a Sela. Okay, so guys again, Pshita. Well, of course, that's all they work for a Sela. So why shouldn't they just get a Sela? Like Tzricha, the Zala Kara. This is talking about where in the beginning it was very cheap. Right? There was no inflation, the workers were available, right? Work was bad, some cheap, but they still don't want to work. So what he did is it was cheap labor, but they still cheap labor didn't want to work. So he raised them by 1 zuz so that they should come work to him. But when they wanted to quit, then their work got more expensive. Now the regular standard prices moved up to the price that these workers agreed to do the job for. Right? Again, they agreed to do the job for 1 zuz going above the going rate. Then they raised the prices. Right? Not they raised, whatever, the prices for workers went up. So Mao, the same Amri Lei, Tfei Zuza, Amritlon. So the workers can say to the boss, you said you would give me an extra zuz, Tfei Zuza Havon, so give us an extra zuz, meaning give us an extra zuz over the going rate, which right now, since the going rate is what our original deal was, so now you have to give us another zuz on top of that. Meaning the workers thought, we would have thought that the workers thought that this zuz is on it's adjustable. It's like an adjustable salary. It always has to be a zuz above everybody else. Kamash Malon, Damr Lahu, Ki Amri Lahu Tfei Zuza. He says, when I told you I'm giving you an extra zuz, the have a Kim Lahu. That's when you didn't want to do the work. But Hashta Kim Lahu. But now you're getting that extra zuz, so that's it. I don't have to give you. I didn't say to give you an extra. I'm giving you an extra zuz over every price. I told you I'm giving you an extra zuz. What it was then. I think Rabbaran. I think there were baseball contracts. I think I remember that where the guy had to be in the top 5. Where they do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's basically what the workers thought. They thought, we got to be a zuz above everybody else. That's what they thought. And the boss told them, no, that's not. I raised you by a zuz at that point to get you to work. That's it. I didn't plan on adjusting it.
Yeah, and Steve Cohen kept in the tradition of Bobby Bonilla when he gave Lindo that contract.
I hear. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fine. By the Rav Doisa disagrees. Right? He says Shamalin as Masha Asali Osais. we evaluate for them what's going to be done. If it was the job was 6 dinim, nice and shekel, he only gives them 2 dinars, right? Again, like we said, Reb Daisa holds that their hand is on the lower end, because look at the next while. The yad of the pile is on the bottom. So therefore, since they're costing this guy they did the job for, that they backed out halfway through, they're costing an extra 2. So therefore, 2 dinar. So therefore, the 2 dinar comes out of the worker's salary, not out of the boss's salary. So therefore, they only end up with 2, right? Fine. Or they can finish their work and get paid shnei slime. Well, Gemara says, of course, pshita. Of course, they only get 2 slime. That's what they were supposed to do. Like tzricha dezala vidita. So again, the same similar Gemara as before. It's talking about where the price of labor went down from when these guys signed on to the job. Balabayas, and then the Balabayas backed out, right? Meaning, according to the Chachamim, we said we're going to say the cases where the pricing went up, so therefore the price of labor went up, so the workers wanted to back out. And here the price of labor went down, so the owner wants to back out, right? He'll get himself cheaper workers. And then the Pailim came and convinced him to let them finish, even though they were paying at a higher rate. Wow, the same. What's a Yamalahu? But you could say that the boss can say to them, I only hired you guys back that you give me a discount on your salary. Kamash Malan, Damri, so that they say to him, no, we said we're going to work for you. You got to pay us the higher price, but we're going to do a very good job. We're not going to mail it in. We're going to make sure we do a fine job. Which I don't know. Yesterday's Gemara, the Gemara asked, okay, so why don't we look at the job and see if they Taka did a fine job? So I don't know why the Gemara doesn't ask that. Okay, Sella, nice and lem Sella, same Gemara as before. If they do a seller's worth of work, which was half of what they contracted for, so then they get half. Subshita, it's pasha. They get a seller. They only did a seller's worth of work. They should only get a seller. So like tzricha taizilu inhu gabe zuzime kara. Right. It's talking about where they made themselves cheaper by a zuz, right? They gave a discount. And then by the time they were working for a bit, then the prices of all work came down by that zuz. Mao the same. So you might think, so the boss will say, you told me you're going to work for me for a zuz cheaper than the going rate. So I'm going to give you a zuz, 1 zuz less, meaning again, it's adjustable, right? And you're going to always get a zuz less than the going rate. Not that I'm giving you a zuz less from what the previous rate was. Kamash Malan, Tam Relay, that the workers tell him, when we told you we're going to work for you and only charge you 1 zuz less, that you didn't know if you're going to get workers. So Mamela, we gave you a discount. Hashta kimlach, but now you know. So therefore, we don't want to give you the zuz discount. Okay. Amarav halach Reb Daisa, halach is like Reb Daisa, which is that when a worker backs out in the middle of a job, then they are yodav ala tachtaina. Fine. So Gemara asks me, Rav Hachi, did Rav really say this? Rav says that a poil is allowed to back out even halfway through the day, right? Which we had said before. We have this kedushin, that you're meshubah to Rabbeinu Shalom. You're not meshubah to anybody else. So therefore, you're allowed to back out during the day. So that's so Rav here says Allah is like Reb Daisa, that if the workers back out in the middle of a job, so then they have the lower hand or the lesser hand. But here Rav says that a poil is allowed to back out. Okay, so the Gemara says maybe there's a pasha the difference. There you want to differentiate between schirus, which means is an hourly worker, the kablanus, and kablanus is that he gets paid by the job. Meaning schiros, if you're just an hourly worker, so you can tell the guy, okay, bye, I'm leaving. But if you agree to do a full job, then you're not allowed to leave until you do the job. Right? And there's a big difference in halacha between schiros and kablanas, benegeya to hilchos Shabbos. Or if you hire a worker to do a job, that's why you're allowed to give your shirts into the cleaners before Shabbos, as long as they don't have to do it on Shabbos, because they're charging you to do the shirt. They're not charging you an hourly rate, so they're working for themselves. Masha'in came an hourly worker, you cannot have, let's say, your cleaning lady iron your shirt, clean your shirts on Shabbos, even if you give it to her before Shabbos, because she's getting paid by the hours. So therefore, she's an extension of you. I mean, that's a pasha the difference between schiras and kablanas. Either way, so maybe here too there's a difference. A schiras, he could back out at any time, meaning an hourly worker, and kablanas not. So the Gemara says, "Umishani does he differentiate?" But Tanya Seicher is a pile. If somebody hires a worker, and halfway through the day, never the worker, somebody passed away, or he got fever. So if he is a day worker, meaning paid by the hour, on top of base now, so nice and nice scharai, he just gives him his schar for what he did, and that's it. And then he goes home. Right? Meaning Rashi says he's an einus, so he gets his regular what he worked for, and zagazut. But in kablan, if he's a kablan, meaning he's supposed to do for the job, so then nice and like kablanusai, he gives him his kablanus, meaning he gives him the part, the chelik of it that he worked for, and that's it, right? Meaning he also, meaning the truth is in both cases, neither one, because it's an einus, neither one there's any sort of knas on either one of them. That's just a matter of exactly how much they're getting paid. So money. Who is this? Who is this price like? Elam Rabbanon. If it's a Rabbanon who said that when a guy backs out, he has the upper hand. My area shama shemes lemes. According to Rabbanon, what do you have to come onto a case where he's an einus, where somebody died, or he got a fever? The honest that he's an einus, kilai honest nami. He even according to Rabbanon, even if he's not an einus, the poil's on the El Yaina, and he gets his regular pay. You don't have to come on to a case of Einus according to Rabbana. Elulav. Reb Daisi, this price must be talking about Reb Daisi. V'shmami no leishani leil Reb Daisi ben schiras l'karbonas. And the psak was the same for a hourly worker or a day worker backing out and a contracted worker backing out. Right? And he holds that both of them, since they're an Einus, they get their regular pay. So then you see that there's no differentiation. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak b'davra avod b'divrei hakol. Right? It's talking when it's saying that both workers are the same, meaning the hourly worker and the contracted worker. It's talking about where if they don't do the job, it's going to be lost. B'divrei hakol, and then everybody at Hanakama and Rav Daisa hold that. That there's going to be, it's much more on the much more achrayus on the workers, right? Meaning the worker can't back out because it's going to be a davar of it, right? Like with Peretz's case with the Vart. I mean, she didn't back out on purpose, the party planner, but Lamaisa, it was a davar of it. Can't say, okay, I'll do the work for you tomorrow, or somebody else. You just it was either then or nothing, right? So yeah, fine. So Tanan, if anybody changes from what he was hired to do, then he has the lower hand. And anybody who backs out from something has the lower hand. So so if somebody's mashana, his hand's on the lower end, the sasamlon Tana Rabbi Yehuda, so then the Tana is going like Rabbi Yehuda, who says, we're going to see this in a couple of blot, or actually tomorrow's blot, that he holds that you give him whatever, meaning if the expenses, we're talking about where he was supposed to dye something red and he dyed it black. So if the expenses were more than it's worth, so then all he gets is what it's worth. And if the opposite, then it's the opposite. So then The stam tan is like Rabbi Yehuda. But this that we say that anybody who backs out has the lower hand, lasuye mai. What's it coming to include? Lav lasuye poil. Is it coming to include a regular daily worker or hourly worker? Right? And he gets the lower hand. And the Braisa is like Rab Daisa. Right? So you see that even day workers is like, meaning the day workers, hourly workers, either one, meaning non-contracted workers also have the lower hand. So the Gemara changes now. Ela Rab Daisa Tartika Omar. Rab Daisa is saying 2 dinim. Right? Meaning both of them, they're both of them Yoda al Tachtaina, meaning a daily worker and a contracted worker are going to get the other Tachtaina because they're not supposed to back out in the middle of a job. The Rav, so how about Rav, who said he is allowed to back out? An hourly worker is allowed to. The Rav, Rav holds like Reb Daisa by a kablan, and he disagrees with him by an hourly worker. Reb Daisa holds anytime a worker backs out, unless it's an einus, he is doing something wrong. And Rav says, no, it depends what type of worker. A kablan is doing something wrong, a day worker is not. Iba Yisayim, or another teretz. Anybody who goes back and changes his mind, his hand is on the lower end. Right? But look at the Tanya, what's it referring to? It's referring to what we learned in the Braisa. What's the case of anybody who changes his mind? If you have a guy who sold the field to his friend for 1,000 zuz, and he gave him 200 zuz out of 1,000, so he gave him a 20% payment. So when the meicher backs out of the deal, meaning the guy put down 20%, and now the meicher wants out. Yad lekeach halal yonis, and it means the one who bought it has the upper hand. Ratza aimer loy tenli musi. If he wants, he could say, "Give me back my money." Oy tenli karka kenegen musi. Or I gave you 200. At least give me some of the land that I paid for. And where is he going to collect it from? Mina ijis, and he can take it from the best lands, from the fattest, best lands of the seller who backed out on him. That's if the seller backs out. It was not
even if he's in contract for that.
I think this is stronger than a contract, no?
No, I'm saying even if he did not contract for the best.
Correct. Yeah. It was he was supposed to give this. He was supposed to get this particular field. Right? He could hold on and say, "You got to give me something for my 200, not for the 1,000. For the 200, you got to give me something, and I want your best." Yeah, the Gemara is going to ask on that in a minute. Right? It was man shelekeach. That's if the seller backs out. It was man shelekeach chayzavay. And when the lekeach is the one that backs out, yad meicher al yaina, then the seller is on the yaina. Ratza aimer lehelech moasecha. He says he can say, "Here's your money." Ratza aimer helech karka kenegen moasecha. Or he could say, "Nah, I'm going to give you some land." And mehechan magviyam in azivuras, he can give him the junky land that he owns somewhere in the middle of the face, Hawaii. No, Hawaii wouldn't be junky land, Rachman. In the middle of the face, Iowa, somewhere. He gives him a land and says, this is for your 200. Right? So you see that whoever backs out is...
My brother bought a piece of property on the Big Island, and after the volcano erupted, all he's got is lava. So yes, he's totally useless.
Hopefully lava rocks will make a comeback.
Yeah, maybe in a few thousand years. Right?
Yeah, maybe
There's such a thing, and there's a lot of Gneivim went with that too. They were selling property like this to people on the mainland, and then they come and they see they got a piece of rock.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with the Midwest, huh? That's where you get the food from.
We were going further. We were going further than the Midwest. Further west. Midwest is all good. Anyway.
I
So anyways,
thought Reb Siaka was referencing Field of Dreams, Iowa.
well, I wasn't. That was not unintentional, but it was a yeah.
That was the whole
Really?
thing.
He's talking about
Is he
Field.
selling the farm or not? That's the whole thing.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what. So whoever backs out is really has the losing end. Rav Shimon Gamliel says the lamdin aisan shalayasru. So Rav Shimon Gamliel, he has a way to make it that nobody can back out. Ketzad, meaning this is how you structure the contract. Kaisav loy, you write to him. Ani Pliny ben Pliny, macharti sada Plynus la Pliny be'elazuz. I'm selling this certain field to you for 1,000 zuz. And you gave me a down payment of 200 zuz, 20%. And now it's no longer, meaning you own the land and you owe me 800 zuz. Right? Kana, then he's kind of the whole field. And he's going to have to pay for it even after many years. So meaning that he can't back out. It was a full sale. Right? He's a full sale. This is contrary to popular, but this is what we do with the Mechiras Chametz. We give the guy gives us a nickel per person. And then we tell him, by the way, this is not, you don't have a choice. The entire Chametz is yours. You owe us millions of dollars. But we don't make him pay. We say, you owe us millions of dollars. You got to pay us back the day after Pesach. Right? That's how we structure the contract. Exactly like this. Right? Again, we tell him, you're only giving us a nickel, but you own the chametz and you owe us the money. You cannot back out of this. It's a chiyuv. Now, when you go back to the guy, you have to face it. You say, okay, you owe us a few $1 million for the chametz. He says, I don't have the money. He says, okay, would you like us to buy it back from you? And then everything cancels out. That's exactly what Shimon Gamliel told them to do, and then they wouldn't have these issues.
Isn't this a raya that you can make a shechianu when you buy a new house?
Why? Is that how it's structured? I have no idea how it's structured.
Isn't it?
No, I think the bank still isn't considered, I think, fakert.
They have a lien. They're not considered owners. They don't consider themselves owners.
I'm not sure. Is that the way it rolls?
I think you own the house. Yeah, they just have a lien on it.
So then,
I don't think it regulates theirs.
So I get that's the machlokes, I guess, amongst the poskim, whether, like Rabbanan says, Rabbik held you don't make shechianu because you don't own the house. But if it's a structure that way, then l'chari you could. Right? Yeah, so I hear. In Lakewood, I think I don't know what they'd say, what they pass in Lakewood.
The shver makes the bracha.
Very good. Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So Omar, yeah, so Omar, Mehechan Magbia, where does he pay him from? Mina Idjis. Right, so if the guy backs out, so he has to pay him from his best land, meaning if the seller backs out, it means from the Idjis of his Nechasim. Right, meaning he can go after any one of his fields, not necessarily the best of this particular field. So I'm going to ask, it should be just like a regular Baal Chayv. It's not Baal Chayv Dina Bebeinis. A Baal Chayv only gets the middle level field. Right? Why can't he just give him money for the let the guy who's selling the field, let him give him the field. Okay, you gave me $200 out of 1,000. Okay, so I'll give you this field. I'll give you 200 of this field. So Gemara answers, so he says, it doesn't mean that he takes the idiyas from anywhere in the seller's portfolio, as they say it. It's from the idiyas of the land that he wanted to buy. And then in the Seifa, when the guy backs out, he also doesn't mean he gives him Siburius. It's from the Siburius of this land.
Where does everybody get real estate portfolio that they have 3 different levels of karka. They got 130 acres when Yeshua divided land. That's what each family got, was 130 acres.
Right. So I guess
in the same place, right? Each Shevet had a certain place in Eretz Yisrael. So
right. And I guess there was different levels of land. Maybe, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean everybody had that. That's a stop. They don't have the machlokes if it goes by each person individually, as opposed to
Yeah, we had this sugya based on the machlokes Rekiva and Rabbi Shmuel.
Is that what it was? I thought so.
The Idis, the Mazik, Idis, the Nizik. So the Gemara discussed what does it mean that everyone has. So I think the Gemara ended up saying that if one guy's let's say a wine grower, so its slope is better for him than flatland. So that's Idis, and the flatland is his Ziburis.
Right. So it's
every
subjective.
piece of land will have Idis and Ziburis.
Right.
Subjectively.
Yeah. That was a machlokes. That should be no surprise. Yeah. So, anyways, okay. You could even say that he gets it from the best of his portfolio. Stam man dezoben ara ba'alfa zuze. So, because stam person that buys land for 1,000 zuz, azule ma'izul mazun nechase. What he did in order to, he liquidated his other assets. So, in order to buy this land, Bahavale kenizik. So now he's as if he was a guy that got damaged because he sold all his belongings in order to sink all his money into this one property, and now this guy backs out on him. So now he's really left holding the bag. So v'tanan hanizakin shaman ve'idius. So somebody who is a nizik, we evaluate him with idius, which is very interesting because we're just assuming that this guy liquidated all his other assets in order to buy this field. Maybe he was a rich guy who was just taking another opportunity.
Even if he did, it's still a huge chiddush. He chose to buy the field, but we're calling the Meicher a Nizik.
Right. Yeah, because he got damaged from. No, we're talking the Meicher's
his choice.
Nizik.
The Meicher's the Nizik.
The Lekeach is the Nizik.
No, the Meicher's the Nizik when he backed out. When he backed out,
he's the Mazik.
I mean the Mazik. We're calling the Meicher a Mazik, even though the Lekech was all the Lekech's choice. Everything the Lekech did was by his own doing. Yeah, right, the Meicher's a Mazik.
Yeah, because he backed out of a deal. He backed out of the deal. Listen,
yeah, but the deal's not connected to the Lekech selling his other fields.
I obviously don't know about it, but anybody who knows some Jewish history, I mean, Canary Wharf, does that ring a bell to anybody? Right?
Yeah, but Margaret Thatcher messed him up over there. Yeah.
Whatever it is, but that was a big nizik. He put his whole, I don't know if he put everything into there, but he did a lot.
That put him under.
Right, because they backed out of the deal. Whoever backed out, why they backed out of the deal?
She promised she's going to bring infrastructure there to be able to get there. And in the end, they backed out, and he leveraged everything because of it.
Well, now in the end, they did.
Right, many years later.
Right. So, but I'm saying, so they mamish damaged him. They mamish damaged Reichman. Right. Anyways, okay. So Shimon Gamliel Leimer.
Who sold it to Reichman?
I don't know. He had a lot of partners with that, I think. Hey, Shimon Gamliel Leimer.
I said who sold it to him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Shimon Gamliel Leimer. You teach them not to. That you teach them this way to do it, to go on a contract that they shouldn't change their mind. Kate said, "Ani Pliny ben Pliny, etc." Right? Time of the cost of lehachi. The reason that he buys the entire field, even though he only paid 200 out of 1,000, is because they wrote it. Haloi cost of hachi loikoni. But that's mashma. If they didn't write this contract, he wouldn't be kainin. But Tani will end the rice on noisim a ravan lechavera. If a guy gives a ravan to his friend, the Ravan is a security deposit. Right? We had this with 2030 in Hazov. And meaning so what's the terms of the deal? If I back out, so then my security deposit is yours. And the other one says, if I'm the one that backs out, I'm going to pay you back double your security deposit. All right. So it seems like everybody is very happy. They have their security deposits and all lined up. So niskaima hatnoim. That the Tanai is Makuyim, Diver of Yosi. That's what Rabbi Yossi holds. Rabbi Yossi L'tamei, why does Rabbi Yossi say it works? The Amar Asmachta Kanya, because Rabbi Yossi says, and Asmachta is Kanya, meaning this is not a real kinyan. It's a kinyan if something happens. And he's saying that works. So Mamela, if you structure it that way, it could work. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Daya Sheyikna Keneged Arvayna. It's enough that he will be able to buy the field with the equivalent of the amount of field that his security deposit was. Right? Because he holds a smacht is not kanya. So the money that he gave for the security deposit, so that he can get in real estate. That's what he says. If my again, this is Rav Shimon Gamliel explaining Rabbi Yehuda. That's only when he says to him that my security deposit should purchase fields for me. But if he sold him a field with 1,000 zuz, and he gave him half, he gave him 500. Kana, he's kaina. And he has to give him back more of it even after many years. Right? So you see that it could work if he gives half the money. That's considered a full sale. Right? And there was no contract that says that. Right, but then the Rav Shimon Reb Gamliel before it was who? And before Rav Shimon Gamliel seems to say it needs a contract, so it's a stira. Meaning, do you need a contract in order for the guy to be liable for the whole field or not? So one answer like Kasha Hadaka Ayal V'Nafik Azuzi. One is talking about where the seller is running around, pressuring and trying to get the money out of the buyer. Right? Meaning, so he's showing that, you know what, I let you say that you're going to pay me back the money, but I'm really unhappy with that. I want to make sure I have the money. So therefore, it's not considered a sale. And how to like Kyle, but nothing goes easy. And the other case, where he's not running around looking for the money. So therefore, we can understand that he meant to sell it, and he figures he'll get the money. He'll get the money at some point. All right. So now we see that you have to look at how the seller is reacting to this. Domar Rava. If a guy sells something to his friend and he didn't get paid for and he keeps making him pay me. He keeps sending him payment notices. Like honey, then the guy is not coined because he has clearly the seller doesn't mean to give it to him. Like but if he doesn't keep sending him invoices, then kani is kind of. Right? You have somebody who lent 100 zuz to his friend, and he keeps paying him back 1 zuz at a time. Right? He doesn't pay. He borrowed 100, and he's paying him back 1 zuz at a time. Pirai and Havi. That's considered a payment. But the lender could have tarumas. Why? You're actually making me lose, because when you go give him every day, he sees him in shul, he borrows $100. Every day in shul, he gives him $1. So what happens? The schnorrer that comes next gets the $1. Oh, then the guy turns around. He says, "I never got any money," right? Because this guy pays him piecemeal, right? So he should be paid all back at once, but he didn't. So he's just giving $1 at a time. So it's considered like paying back the loan, but he could have complaints. Okay, we'll stop over there because I want to try and get a Meyer. All right. Let's say